Tav Chof Beis Amud Aleph will begin Chaf Aleph Amud Beis, 8 lines from the bottom. We're in the middle of the limud from Rav Abo that says anytime the Torah says lo yoichal, lo soichel, lo soichlu, any of these lashonos of achila, it's not only isra achila b'mashma, it's also isra hana. And we learned it out. He learned it out rather from the brisa that we had the machlokes Rav Yehuda and Rav Meir. What the Torah says by nevela. The Torah says by nevela that it says that you're not allowed to eat it. It says lo soichlu, but it says over there that what you do with it is that you give it to the ger and to the nochri. So Rav Abo said learned out, and he learned out from Rav Meir that you can see that the Torah over here says that it's mutter to give it to a ger, to sell it to a nochri. Here it's mutter b'hana. That means elsewhere, otherwise, where the Torah says this lashon of lo soichlu, it's also b'hana. Then it's also b'hana. Now we had a side machlokes in Rav Meir Rav Yehuda when the pasuk says by nevela that it says that you give it to the ger, you sell it to the nochri. That according to Rav Meir, it's lav davka. It's only that there's a priority given to the nochri, to the ger rather, to the ger toshav, to give it to him and not sell it to him. The priority is to sell it to the nochri and not give it to him. But it's only a priority. But you can give one to the other. You can interchange it. You can give it to the nochri. You can sell it to the ger. But Rav Yehuda said that dvarim kiksava, no, it has to be literal. It has to be davka that way. It has to be davka that it is given to the ger and sold to the nochri. It has to be davka to do it in that way. So, frek the Gemara, Bishlam l'Rab Meir, Domer echad ger ve'echad nochri, bein b'mechira, bein b'nesina. He said that you can do both. It's interchangeable. So, therefore, we will learn out it's rakron l'mishnei nevel b'hano, hakol yisur sheb'toira, asur and bein b'achila, bein b'hano. Therefore, we can learn out Rav Avo's din. We can understand it. We can learn it out properly, because according to Rabbi Meir, he says that the Torah says that you can give it and sell it bein to nochri and bein to a ger. So we understand here the Torah says that it's mutter b'hana. Therefore, elsewhere where the Torah says this lashon of achil, it's also b'hana. We understand that. But Ella Rabbi Yehuda da'amar l'dvarim kiksavan would also. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, he says that it's l'dvarim l'ksavan also. Then it has to be davka that way, and it has to be davka in that way. It has the word oi to tell you that it has to be davka the ger b'nesina and the nochri b'mechira. So therefore, how do I know that, generally speaking, when the Torah says lo soichlu, that it's also b'hana? Meaning, maybe the point over here is that it's not to teach us that here it's mutter b'hana, and therefore elsewhere when the Torah says lo soichlu, it's also b'hana. Maybe the reason why the Torah says this over here is to tell you that it's davka in this manner. It's davka the ger b'nesina and the nochri b'mechir. Otherwise, if the Torah hadn't said this, I wouldn't know that. I wouldn't know it has to be davka in this way and only in this way. Then perhaps, therefore, the whole point of the pasuk is to teach me not that it's mutter b'hana. Maybe lo soichlu generally is mutter b'hana, not also b'hana. Maybe the point is not to tell me that here it's mutter, but elsewhere it's also. It's maybe to tell me that here, that davka over here, it has to be done davka in this manner. The ger b'nesina, the nochri b'mechira. How do you know that we can learn out from here that generally soichlu is isra hana, and the point over here is to teach me heter b'hana? How do we know that? So Tosfos asks that why is this a kashka davka on Rabbi Yehuda? How can you even learn it out according to Rav Meir? Now, according to Rav Meir, you also have the kasha, because the Rav Meir also agrees that he says that you have a limit over here, you have a special din over here. The oi is lahaktim. The oi over here is to tell me that the pasuk says that you sell it. It says titnena v'achla oi mochra lenachri, that you give it, you eat it oi mochra lenachri, is to tell you that lahaktim, that there's a priority given, that this priority that the nesina leger and the mechir to the nachri. So perhaps that's the whole din over here. Why don't you have the same kasha according to Rameir, that there's also perhaps the limit is only over here to tell me this din of lahaktim. Taisa's answer is because no. If the pasuk hadn't written this, Rabbi Meir agrees with Rabbi Yehuda that min hasvora I would say lahaktim. He also agrees that min hasvora I would say this because the ger atamatsuv lahachyesa and the nachri atamatsuv lahachyesa. However, the reason why Rabbi Meir says that I need the oi is to tell me lahaktim is because if it hadn't, now that the pasuk says that you give it to the ger, you sell it to the nachri, and it's coming to tell and teach me over here the heter hano, and by inference otherwise where it says loy soichlu, it's also bahano. If it hadn't said oi, I might have thought and said, well, perhaps what the pasuk over here is coming to teach me is something else, that there is no mitzvah lahaktim. There's no priority. If it hadn't said oi, I would say, well, just like the Torah is now telling me something, a chiddush d'kedin over here, if it hadn't said oi, I would say that counterintuitively, as opposed to what I would have thought min asvora, that there's lahaktim, perhaps this is what the Torah is telling me over here, and there's no mitzvah lahaktim. That's why it has to say oi. But if it hadn't said, it can't be that the whole pasuk is dafka for that, because if the pasuk hadn't said anything, I would know lahaktim min asvora. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, the question is, since the Torah is telling me a chiddush over here, that it's a dvarim kiksavan, it's dafka, the ger nesina, the nachri b'mechira, maybe that's the whole point of the pasuk. How do you know to learn out that the chiddush over here is that even though it says achila, there's heter bahana? Maybe I would say generally when it says that achila, loy soichlu, it's muter bahana. How do we know it's also bahana? The Gemara says, he learns it out from elsewhere. He learns it out from the pasuk that says, by a treifa, it says if there's a treifa, you throw it to the dog. That we make a diuk, this is where you can throw it to a dog. But kol yisurim shebatayra, then you can't throw it to the dog. It's only over here that you can throw it to the dog. But otherwise, you cannot throw it to the dog. So this teaches you that treifa is muter bahano, but otherwise when it says leisaychlu, that when it says leisaychlu, it's also bahano. So the question arises, Rashi asks, that why do we have to learn it out from Oisai? Why don't we learn it out from the Etzem Halach? The Etzem Halach is you can throw it to a dog. That means it's muter bahano. Why doesn't that show you from the fact that the Torah says you can throw it to a dog? That shows you that over here it's muter bahano. But generally where it says leisaychlu, it's also bahano. I mean, why is the point when the dar drosh is oisai? This over here, the treifa, you can throw it to a dog. Otherwise, where it says leisaychlu, it's also bahano. Why is the drosh dafka from the isa? Why do you need the isa for that? Why don't you learn it out from the etzem halacha that it can be thrown to a dog, even if it said like helav tashlicha, even if it didn't say isa? You should be able to learn that out. Rashi says no, because the fact that the Torah is telling you that throw it to a dog, I might have thought it's not the point to tell you that this is muter bahana, and otherwise it says leisaychlu, I would think also bahana. No, maybe it's throw it to the dog, because the Torah is rewarding the dog, because in Mitzrayim loyechas kel v'shaynai, and therefore the dogs are rewarded with the nevela. I might have thought that that's the reason. That's the reason it's thrown to the dog. But the fact that it says oisoi is teaching us that dafka over here, oisoi, why does the Torah says it can be thrown to a dog? But otherwise, where you have the leisaychlu, it's also, you cannot throw it to a dog. But Rabbi Meir, and according to Rabbi Meir, that we know from Nevela that generally the Lashon of Leisaychlo means Isrbano. Then we don't need the Oisoi to teach me this. Rab Meir, what do I learn from the Oisoi by Treifa? Oisoya to Mashal Kelev. This you can throw to a Kelev. V'ata Mashal Kelev, Chulin Shenishtu Ba'azora. But in case of Chulin, if you have an animal that you're not Makdish, so it's not kosher, you brought Chulin, a regular animal that's not been consecrated. You bring it to the Azor and you shecht it in the Azora. That is also Bano. This is Mutabano. Over there, you can't get Hano from it. So it's telling you over here, Oisoi, this you can throw to a dog, you can get Hano, but you can't get Hano. Now, where do we see Chulin Shenishchtu Ba'azor? Over here, where this the Torah doesn't say Loisaychlu, and where do we see from this pasuk Chulin Shenishchtu Ba'azor? The Rashi explains as follows: the pasuk by Treifa says Basar Besoda Treifa. It says a Basar Betreya Besoda. That's a Treifa you can't eat. It says Loisaychelu Lakela Tashlich Noisay. Now, why does it say Basar Besoda? So, in addition to that, that's where commonly treifas are found. We darshan basar basoda that any time the meat has gone out, chutz l'mechitzasai, out from its normal confines. So, for instance, if you have a ben pekua, if there's a vlad in the womb of the mother, then you shech the mother. The vlad is mutter with the shchita of the mother. If prior to the shchita it stuck out a limb, a hand or something, then it left its confines, and therefore it's also ba'achila. So it's basar b'sara loisechelu lakelu tashlich naisa. Anytime the basar leaves its confines, like a basar that's treifa, that's out in the field, that it's discarded, it's out in the field, it's a treifa, then basar b'sara treifa loy cannot be eaten. So therefore, it's telling you that even though from this pasuk we learn out from this pasuk the din of chulin shenishchta ba'azora, that of chulin ishach and azora, it's also ba'achila, basar b'sara treifa loy seichelu. But over here, this basar b'sara treifa, then basar b'sara loy seichelu by kelav tashlichon oisai. This you can throw to the dog, but chulin shenishchta ba'azora is also b'hanam. So that's what he learns out. This is what Rabbi Meir learns out from V'idach, and Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you don't learn that out from here. You learn out Chulin Shenishchta, because Chulin Shenishchta Ba'azora lav daraisa. He holds it's not a daraisa. Therefore, the oisa is not for this. The oisa is to teach you that oisa you throw to a dog, the treifa, but not called isurin shabbatayra. Because he doesn't learn out the limud for Chulin Shenishchta Ba'azora, because Chulin Shenishchta Ba'azora lav daraisa. That is not a daraisa. There's a machlekes rishonim. What does it mean it's not a daraisa? Does it mean it's not a daraisa? The iser hano is not a daraisa, but the iser achila is daraisa? Or does it mean that, no, even the iser achila is not daraisa either? But kolponim, the Rabbi Yehuda says that you cannot learn out this din of Hano for Chulin Shenishchta Ba'azora because it's lav daraisa. The Gemara now continues with the kasha on Rabbi Bo, who said whenever the Torah uses a lashon of achila lo'yaychel, it implies not only an isra achila but also an isra hano. Master Rabbi Yisrael Nafka. I v'arei gid hanoshe. In the case of the gid hanoshe, the Torah says lo yoichl, a lashon of don't eat. Utenan, and we learned that shaleach adam yarach lenachri v'gid hanoshe b'seicha. A person is allowed to send a present to a nachri. He's allowed to send the thigh of an animal, even though the gid hanoshe has not been removed; it's still there. And he's allowed to send them because the place is nicker, it's recognizable. Meaning, you might say that we're concerned, well, he sends it to the goy. A yid might see that, see the meat, it came from a Yisrael, a chaver, it's kosher. And he'll assume, perhaps he'll say, that it's not only kosher, but the Yisrael removed the gid hanoshe. And therefore, maybe he'll buy it from the Nachri, thinking that the gid hanoshe has been removed when it hasn't. So perhaps you'll say, therefore, a person should not be allowed to send the thigh, the yerach, to the Nachri because of that chashash. No. He is allowed to send it to the Nachri, and we're not concerned about that chashash mipnei shemekayim nicker, because the place of the gid is nicker. It's nicker, it's recognizable. If the gid has been removed or not, it's something that's discernible. So he will know and recognize if the gid has been removed. But Al-Kolpan, what do you see over here? You see over here that the gid is mutar b'hano. He's allowed to send it to the Nachri, is allowed to send it to the Nachri, and we don't say that there's an Isser Hana involved over here. Taisa says, as that we'll see shortly, the Gemara will prove that this Man Domar is Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda Masechet Pesachim says you cannot give a gift to a Nachri. So what does it mean over here? Shalei Charam Yerach LeNachri V'gid HaNash B'Seicha. He means it's to a Nachri Shemakire, like a neighbor, that he's giving it to him not just as a gift, a gratuitous gift. It must be because there was some tovus and no involved. The guy did him a favor, or it's an anticipation of him doing a favor. So it's in terms of a payment, not as a matnas chinam, because there is some anticipation of some favor or some return for this item, either that he did or will do something on account for the benefit of the Yisrael, and this is being repaid. Al-Kolpan, we see over here that even though it says a lashon of lo yoichlu, that you cannot eat it, or lo yoichlu, rather it says al-kain lo yoichlu, it says a lashon of not eating, we say over here, it's mutar b'hano. Now, according to Ravo, it should be also b'hano. More answers, Kasava Rabbi Avo, he holds Kishahutra Nevela, he Vechelba Vegida Hutra. We saw previously that Nevela says specifically by Nevela that it's mutar b'hano. That even though it says a lashon of achila, of not eating, but it's mutar b'hano. So that's the same makor for Gid HaNosha, because the Gid HaNosha is part and parcel of the Nevela. The nevela encompasses not only the meat, but all parts of it, including the Gid HaNosha. So when the Torah was mater, the nevela b'hano, it was mater, he v'chelba v'gid HaHutra, it was mater the chelav, and also the gid, and it's also mutter. So this is an exception, which we learn out from the heter of hano from nevela. Well, that's so if you hold that gid, it's considered, the gid is considered to have a tam, it's considered to have a flavor, meaning that if you cook the meat with the gid, then the meat becomes ulcer because the gid is considered to have imparted flavor tam to the meat. Then you can say that the gid is considered part of the nevela, and when the nevela is hutra, the gid is also hutra. But if you hold that ain't begin b'nais tam, and therefore the gid is considered like an eitz balma, just like a piece of wood. So then it's not part and parcel of the nevela. My ikala meimar. What are you going to say? What do you see from here? I heter hano by the Gid HaNosha. More answers. Man shamad le'domer ein begidim nice and tam. Who's the man domer who says that there's no tam by gidin? That's Rabbi Shimon. That is Rabbi Shimon. The sanya oichel megid HaNosha shel behema tmeya. If a person eats from the Gid HaNosha of a behema tmeya, so there's two possible isurim over here. There's two considerations. It's in a behema tmeya, the animal's not kosher, so the meat is not kosher, and there's also an isur of Gid HaNosha. So if he eats megid HaNosha behema tmeya, Rabbi Yehuda mechayiv shtayim. Rabbi Yehuda says you're chayiv shtayim. You're chayiv because it's a behema tmeim, and also for the gid. So you see that Rabbi Yehuda holds the yesh begidim b'nais tam. He's the one that holds yesh begidim b'nais tam. Rabbi Shimon paiter, and Rabbi Shimon says you're pater, and Rabbi Shimon says you're pater because he holds you're pater from both. Because the Gid HaNosha is not considered meat. It's not considered a behema tameh, the meat of a behema tameh. It's not meat. So there's no isser of the basar, and ain't begin with nice and tam. So there's no isser of the gid because it's like a piece of wood. It's eitz balmer. So Shimon says it's potter. So you see, Rabbi Shimon holds ain't begin with nice and tam, and Rabbi Shimon achinami also b'hana. And according to Rabbi Shimon and Chanami, it is also b'hana. It's not considered part of the nevela. It is also b'hana. This nanya Gid HaNosha mutar b'hana divrei Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon iser, and Rabbi Shimon says it's also. So as we mentioned before, this that we said over here, that the gid, that you can send the gid to the Nachri, that's the shita of Rabbi Yehuda, who holds yesh begin b'nois and tam. There is flavor. It's considered therefore to be part of the nevela. And when the Torah was matched to the nevela, kashutra nevela, he chelba v'gida hutrum. But Rosh Shimon and Hanami, he says that it's also, there's no makor to say that it is mutar b'hano. Rek the Gemara, another kasha to Rabbi Vo, dam, by the case of the blood. The Rachmana Amar kol nefesh mikem loisay hal dam. The Torah says you can't eat the blood, so it says a lotion of loisay, not eating. And therefore, according to Rabbi Vo, that should imply that it's also b'hana. However, Utanan, we learned in a Mishnah, Elavela misharvim ba'ama, the shiraim, the blood that from the chatas of pnimim and the chatas of chitzain, from the two different korbanos. So the remainder is poured on the base of the mizbeach hachitzain. That's what's done with the left of the remainder of the dam after the hazois, after the sprinkling, and it's poured on the base of the mizbeach hachitzain, and they mix together and they flow through the channel. There were the holes on the base. They flowed down to a channel, and the blood flowed outside the azara, and it flowed. They let mizhar ba'ama in the channel, the yosem nachal kidron. It flowed out to the nachal kidron. That's where the blood flowed out to. V'nimkarim alaganon ulazavel, and they are sold. So the gizborim of Hector sold this blood to gardeners who used to use it as fertilizer. Umoalimboy. And there is a din mi'ila, as Taisus explains, there's a din mi'ila midarabbanan. So really these are now midaraisa, there's no mi'ila, Taisus explains, because in l'chador shenasas mitzvasai umoalimboy. There is, the mitzvah is done. The mitzvah of that was supposed to be done with the dam, the hazois and the shvicha on the aside, the mitzvah that was supposed to be done with the dam has been done. So prior to the mitzvah being done, there's a din mi'ila d'oraisa. If anybody has hana, takes hana from it, there's mi'ila, he has to pay a chaimish and bring a korban asher mi'ilais. Over here, since the mitzvah is already done, midoraisa, there's no mi'ila. Midrabbanan, they imposed a mi'ila on it, which means that someone who uses it without buying it from the gizbar would pay the chaimish, but there's no asham, there's no korban. Al Kolpanim, what do you see over here? Well, you see over here that this dam is mutar b'hano. You see that dam is mutar b'hano. Once we remove the mi'ila considerations from it, but the dam itself is mutar b'hano. So, therefore, according to Rav Boaz, sure, it's a kasha, because according to what it says in the pasuk loisaychal, dam should be aser b'hano, and yet you see it's mutar. More answer, shiny dam diskish l'mayim. Now, blood is different because the Torah compares it to water, makes a hekesh with the dam and water, and therefore, just like water is mutar b'hano, then dam is mutar b'hano. Dichsiv loisaychleno al haaretz tishbechenu kamayim. It says you can't eat the blood, then pour it on the ground like water. You can't eat it, pour it on the ground like water. So ma mai mutarim, avdam mutar. So we say that just like water is mutar, so too dam is mutar. So it's a special heter over here by dam that the Torah compares it to water, which is mutar. Break the Gemara. Well, how do you know it's making a comparison to water, which is mutar? Maybe it's making a comparison to water, which is also. Maybe it's like water that's poured on the mizbeach, that's used for nisuch hamayim, and sukkahs they pour the water on the mizbeach, the avoid of nisuch hamayim, and that's kadosh, and it's also therefore also b'hano. So maybe that's the water it's comparing it to. When it says mayim, it means roiv mayim. It means that most water. We're not talking about a specific case of water. We're talking about, generally water in general rather, which is mutar b'hano. Frankly, more immediate roiv mayim ksiv. It doesn't say like most water. It says mayim. Maybe it means a specific water. Elamar Ravashi Kamaim Nishbachim. He says no. The Torah says Al Aretz Tishbachenu. It's the water which is you should pour it, the blood, like water which is poured on the ground. Al Aretz Tishbachenu Kamayim. You pour it like water, kamayim, which is poured on the ground. This blood is like this water. You spill it on the ground. So it's kamayim hanishbachim, v'loy kamayim hanisochim, which means, therefore, the comparison blood to water is water that is poured on the ground. But the water that is used for nisuch hamayim is not nishbachim, that's nisachim. That's water that's used for a libation. That's water that's used to pour on the mizbeach, which is called nisuch hamayim, and it's not called shvicha. Maybe it means like water which is poured before Avodah Zarah. They used to do it for their service of the Avodah Zarah, which is also bahano. Maybe it means that type of water, which is also bahano. No, where it says hasam nami nisuch ikri, that's also called nisuch, not maim nishbachim. That's maim nisuchim. It says in the pasuk that they drink the water of their nisuch that they use for Avodah Zarah. Therefore, that water is also called nisuch and not shvicha. And the Torah is comparing dam to maim hanishbachim. That means that it's regular, ordinary water, which is mutar b'hano. Frank the Gemara, well, we've now explained it according to Rabbi Vo. But Hizkiah, who says that when it uses a lotion of achila, it does not mean isser hano, only lo ye'achel. And therefore, over here, there should be no reason that the Torah should be matir, to have to be matir the dam bahano, because it never answered it, according to Hizkiah. So the Hizkiah is dam lamayim. According to him, what is the hekish for? It can't be to say that it's mutar b'hano, because there's no source to say that it's also b'hano. The more answers, the little b'chia barabba. The Amar b'chia barabba Amar v'yechanan minayin l'dam kachim sheina machshir. How do I know that the blood of kachim is not machshir? Liquids are machshir, food kabel tumah. Before they can become tomei, they're not susceptible to tumah unless that after they're considered an oichel, they came into contact with water. Now they're considered to be complete. They came into contact with one of the 7 liquids. Now they're considered to be complete, and they're susceptible to tumah. Dam is machshir. Dam is considered one of these liquids. However, dam of kachim, the blood of a korban, is not. How do I know that? So how do I know minayin l'dam kachim sheina machshir shenemra lo soich lenu al haaretz tishbachenu kamayim? Don't drink the blood, pour it on the ground like water. So therefore, what is compared to water? Water is a mashka and is a machshir l'kabel tumah. What type of dam is considered like water and is machshir l'kabel tumah? Dam shenishbach kamayim machshir. It's only the blood that's poured on the ground which is machshir, ordinary blood. But she'eino nishbach kamayim eino machshir. But the one that's not poured on the ground, the hainu, that is the blood of the kachim, which is not poured on the ground, it's used for the mizbeach, that is not considered like water and is not machshir l'kabel tumah. That's what Rav Vo uses the drasha for, but not to teach me the heter ano, because according to him, the Torah never answered it by no. The isra ano, according to Chizkiah, is only if it uses a lotion of lo ye'achel, not a lotion of lo yoichel, lo soichel, etc.